So then how much of food are we wasting? Let's talk about food waste. So we just talked there that food production is a quarter of all our greenhouse gas emissions. And then the facts are and the stats are that a third of this food is wasted. Now, actually, in Ireland, we're at 29% of our food is wasted. In the US, it's as high as 40%. So even if you think about Ireland, you know, when you go to the shops and you buy 3 bags of groceries, it's just like leaving one behind you or throwing it in the bin straight away. That's the amount of food that is being wasted. And you think about, you know, that on a global level, that's 10% of our greenhouse gas emissions just from wasting food, which is, I mean, it's just staggering to me that that's the amount that is there, just completely wasted at the end of the food chain. And that accounts to 2.5 billion tons of food waste. I mean, I can't even get that figure into my head in terms of what kind of size. I've actually looked at how could you represent that, but it's like it's just so much food. And basically, if you look at some ways of kind of getting that into your head, it's an area larger than the size of China is used to produce that food. You know, it's vast, and a quarter of the world's fresh water is used to produce that food that then goes to waste. And then I mean, obviously we're all aware that there are a lot of people in this world going hungry, and only a quarter of the food that we waste could solve that issue. So, you know, on lots of levels, food waste is, you know, it's you know, a key issue that we need to really focus on, and a great opportunity to do good things with that food. And so then we come down to the cost of this. I mean, obviously, you know, we're talking about this from the point of view of climate, but there's a huge cost to this, financial cost. And this is where, you know, it makes utter sense, and it should be something that is relatively easy to address, because if somebody reduces their food waste, they're going to save a lot of money. So the average cost in the US, I mentioned at the beginning there that in the US, the figures are that 40% of food is wasted. Here it's 30%, just under 30%. So in the US, the cost per family is about 2,000 per year. An Irish family, it's 60 euros per month, or 700 a year. So it's not insignificant. And then when you start to bring that up to the level of a restaurant or a hotel, you start to get into quite big numbers. So again, this is all money that every single restaurant, every single hotel is losing. And so it is a huge area that is ripe for the picking in terms of, you know, applying learnings and good tactics. A lot of it is really just around awareness and good organization. And the other thing about this is that it's just not talked about. I mean, it's a source of embarrassment to everybody that they waste food. We all know, like deep down, that like wasting food, I mean, our grandparents, our parents would have talked about it. Great grandparents, you know, war times even more so, like, but it's, you know, we all kind of have, it's kind of like a you know, a guilt when you're putting something in the bin. And I'm not perfect myself. And, you know, sometimes, you know, something gets left at the back of the fridge and it does go out of date. But like by actually measuring and raising awareness, we can do an awful lot and then start to talk about this. So I know a lot of the supermarkets are doing fantastic work with the EPA, but it's just not really talked about because they don't want it hitting the press. But there is work going on, which is good. This is just, I think, a good illustration from the US EPA on like kind of the hierarchy. And the absolute best thing to do, obviously, is source reduction, where you just encourage homeowners, restaurants, hotels to just, you know, not buy too much and have portion control, don't serve too much, and to reduce it at source. The next part of it is donation upcycle. So that's where there's a lot of innovation happening now. Some of you will know Too Good To Go and Olio. We'll talk about those after the break, and the food cloud. So that's a big part that actually now is starting to be tackled. I think the source reduction is still not being adequately tackled. And then obviously you start to move down the food chain in terms of, like, you know, giving food to animals, or plowing it back into the land, and then you move on to composting, and then the absolute end of the road, worst option is the landfilling, as we've discussed, because of the issue with methane. So that's just a good hierarchy to kind of keep in your mind.